Good evening, everybody. And today I'm going to talk about the dependent co-origination. It is our introduction to Buddhism class. And Bhante Pema invited me for this class because I'm very interested in this topic. And we will go into the lesson, and in this lesson I take 20 minutes to explain the basic explanations about the dependent co-origination, and within that 20 minutes you will help me without asking questions. And if you have questions, please write down there, and later on we have an open discussion time and we can share our thoughts. So in this lesson our objectives are: identify the structural principle of the dependent co-origination, and also that explain the main application of the above principle, and describe the dependent origination as an analysis of self-formation.
Use the other.
How's that? That's better.
So, why dependent origination is significant for Buddhism? You know that a lot of people who are joining with this class, and they say that this is the hardest readings that I have gone through in this class, and some have given, we noticed the comments on that, and so also there were a lot of complicated answers and comments, and that means actually this is the very important teaching in the teachings of the Buddha, and also this teaching is common for all other sects, the schools of the Buddhism. So this is the central teaching of the Buddhism. Before we move to the dependent co-origination, we will just look around how this particular teaching appear into this world. And if you go into the contemporary period of the Buddha, there were mainly two views. One was eternalism, the other one is nihilism. In eternalism, philosophers, thinkers, even people in general thought that some philosophers argue that there's no anything, any particular, there is something, some particular entity, life after. It is unchanging entity going after this life. And also in nihilism, they argued that there's no anything, any particular entity, life after. Based on these two views, they created different philosophical points, forms of causalities, because without particular cause, we cannot solidly stand up ourselves. So we need some kind of analysis or explanation for ourselves, and also all the other phenomena. So based on those two views, there were several, and I quoted few of them. And naturalistic theory, it is in Pali Svabhavavada, In naturalistic theory, they argued that everything, all the phenomena as a result of inherent natural cause. And so there's no particular significant role for the psychological part in a life. And also external causation, that they argued that Parankatang, that they argued that there is something invisible, superpower behind the life. And also determinism, Niyativada, in this particular view, that they argued that there is some kind of predeterministic cause. No one can change that. It is predeterministic. And also indeterminism, Aditya Samupannavada, there is no one can claim that there is a cause for it. Everything happened by chance or by accident. Therefore, there was a gap in human philosophy. That they were looking for a solid, a kind of practical, pragmatic experience, kind of a philosophical analysis about the cause. So that is why, from the Buddhist point of view, in the teachings of the Buddha we can find a particular explanation that is called the Paticca Samuppada. In general, this is the popular translation, dependent origination. Some other scholars and monks, they have translated into different ways. Dependent arising, conditioned genesis, dependent co-origination. According to the teachings of the Buddha, there is a fundamental structure for this Paticca Samuppada, dependent co-origination. There are four laws, fundamental factors. And the first one, when this is present, that comes to be. From the arising of this, that arises. When this is absent, that does not come to be. On the cessation of this, that ceases. I have seen that even the document that you read, you might notice that there is a particular analysis using A and B. Personally, I don't agree with that analysis because this is a theory. If you are going to analyze theory yourself in a isolated condition, it is not practical. That is why Buddha applied this into the human life. And also this can apply into any condition, but mainly Buddha focused the attention to the human life, and the major issue is always exists with us, not with the other simple conditions around us. So very simply, before I go to the 12 links causation, the Paticca Samuppada, I and form get together, and there we call I conscious. Still we have a kind of self-identity, so still you cannot understand that. If you go into a simile, even this simile also very popular in the teachings of the Buddha. The fire. How does a fire origin? When two pieces of woods rub each other, and in a particular temperature, the fire appears. The problem is, once fire appears, we stuck on the fire. We just forgot the causes behind this. Same thing happened for us. That is why we start to think, I, myself, so on. Because we have forgotten the basic cause and the basic structure and the condition and the activities behind this. So same thing happened in the fire, and also eye, ears, nose and tongue all together get together and form, and then you concept and conceptualize and so on. It's a big
Fire.
And also 12 links, because this is the application of the Paticca Samuppada, that particular the very short 4 terms, 4 factors structure, the fundamental structure: ignorance, formation, psychophysical personality, 6 gateways: contact, feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, birth. Actually, there are a lot of analysis for this. I like to separate this into 2. One, start from the beginning to the end of the birth, and from there aging, death, sorrow, lamentation and rejection. This way is more easier to understand this analysis rather than analyzing in different ways. If we have time, we can discuss this also later. And also I want to show you that in this analysis, Buddha used this to show the genesis of the conditions and also the phenomena, and also the cessation of the order. That is why actually in the teachings of the Buddha, in the discourses, this particular phrase is very popular. One who sees the dependent arising sees the Dhamma, and one who sees the Dhamma dependent arising. Even the Nagarjuna, one of the greatest Buddhist philosophers in the Buddhist history, also he quoted this, and he says that he has, according to he has become Buddhist because of this particular philosophy. And that's all our first part, and we can move to the second. And Bhante Prema also will help.
Okay, so there's a summary. So we also posted a number of questions. So we last night we reviewed the questions. So if you posted anything after last night, that will not be here. So please understand that. So let's talk about answers given to questions, and then that will help us to go into the this presentation. But the first question Bhante actually set for us was to ask you to comment on this statement. The doctrine of dependent origination is a way to analyze the 5 aggregates, right? And then we asked you to comment. So it's a way of connecting what you learned in previous lessons, and also for you to think a little bit deeper. So the way we set questions, that the answers are not in the document. Answers is something that we have to connect relationships, and we have to. So that's how we try to set the questions. So this is the question that Bhante set for us to see. He's making a statement that this particular doctrine is a way to analyze the 5 aggregates. So we receive a number of good answers. I think we are satisfied with the answer. One common thing that appear, because you can see in the 5 aggregates we have number of 5 different aggregates, and you can see the same things appear in the list of dependent origination too. In a simple language, we can say 5 aggregates explain more on the constituents or elements of our being, and the dependent origination explain more of the process of that whole thing. So the 5 aggregates will be like a frozen picture of who we are, and dependent origination is explaining the whole process of that thing. Then the second question Bhante gave us is, according to the dependent origination, how the formation of self can be deconstructed. So that's the order of cessation. I think we got few answers. Some say that if you get rid of the ignorance, everything will be, then that's the way to deconstruct the self. Some would say that all 12 links have to be seized in order to deconstruct the self formation. And I think one person answers that not really the link, not really these the 12 things, but the relationship between these two had to be deconstructed. Yeah.
Bhante, I really love Bhikkhu Bodhi and everything that he writes, but I felt that presenting this in a linear fashion made it more difficult for me.
Okay.
If it were in a circle, or even better yet, a sphere, you could see that there's no beginning or end. But when he talks about a chain, I'm expecting there's the beginning of that chain and the end of that chain, and I guess you make the chain into a circle.
Yeah.
Something about that linearness that just got me stuck.
I think it's one way is a part of my fault because I was selecting readings that can allow you to read the actual discourse of the Buddha, and also like in practical length and all those things. So that is why we actually added the end part, because in the readings we only have the order of genesis and there's no order of cessation, so that's why we add that last part.
And also there is a recommendable text, but it is big. Venerable Jnanananda's analysis for this, but that is why.
So this is the introduction.
Introduction.
Yeah.
So Bhante.
In that article, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi is not giving so much analysis, but he's simply presenting the Pali discourses and showing the 12 links. But of course,
in this lesson, if you at least become familiar with these 12 links, that might be enough, more than enough.
Okay. The last question was what do you think as ignorance in the context of dependent origination? Because ignorance can mean anything, but in this context, what do you think as ignorance? I think everybody has given a very standard answer. That is the ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, and that's the standard answer. But we can talk more in detail about that. But that's one long answer. We can talk about it as time permits. Generally, it's the ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Bhante, do you like to add anything to the ignorance? Yeah.
But we need another few hours for that.
Yeah. So in this introductory level,
but if anybody question on that, then you can have a.
So you can see that like ignorance is given on the top as the list, but do not, as you correctly mentioned, we should not think it in terms of linear fashion. But everything becomes possible as long as we have that covered part. It's like when we have a knob, when we have a lid on a bottle, as long as that lid is closed, everything else in the bottle can function nicely. So as long as if somebody remove that lid, and then maybe the pressure is gone, something like that. So ignorance has that central role here, definitely.
That's right.
Yeah. So that really means, in general, your answers are correct. Ignorance of the Four Noble Truths.
And also, if somebody say that ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, because it is, as Bhante said, is a standard explanation, even the teaching some other discourses. But the problem is, if ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, oh, it is so easy.
Because we
How can
we read what the Buddha taught and we learn Four Noble Truths.
Yeah. But there is something behind. And ignorance has a more wider analysis, and we have that. And so we have to very carefully we have to analyze the formation, psychological, because this is the most important word in this sequence, and psychophysical personality. So before you jump into these things, because this is an inseparable word in general, nama and rupa, name and form, because name form, it is a combined word, name and form. Even there's no end, name form. That is how it shows in here. We translate into psychophysical analysis, the personality. But actually, this is the term nama rupa. It is a one word, but it is not truly a one word. There's two words. So how can we separate this word? In general, it is something difficult, and actually, if you go through it, how a name separate from a form. For example, how can the whiteboard, the whiteboard, how can we separate from this particular piece?
The name and form.
Because it exists together, combined together. But actually here the point is that Buddha says that you can. We can. If you cannot do this, then this appears. This way of analysis is more wider, bigger analysis for us to understand the dependent origination.
Okay, now we can ask questions. Yes.
Yeah, just for my own sake, because I was always under the impression that ignorance always meant something like self-delusion or self-centeredness, not being able to see yourself as you really are. Would
Yes.
that be ignorance?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that covers. I mean, yeah, ignorance covers what you just said. Yeah, and what Bhante is mentioning is that it's so when you go into what it really is, and then we have to go to that name form explanation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if this question is strictly on topic, but it's something that popped into my head. The Buddha was said to attain enlightenment, which is complete cessation of craving. Along with this, there was the total extinguishing of all his karma. And so ultimately when he died, there were no more karmic seeds to come to fruition, either good, bad, or indifferent. If he did this during his lifetime, attain this state during his lifetime, or attain the unconditioned or the unborn, as a human being, walking around, interacting with other human beings.
Not only Buddha, many other disciples of the Buddha too.
Yeah. I mean, anyone can do this in theory.
Yeah.
He was, I guess what I'm thinking is all the things that the Buddha did during the last half of his life, being, teaching and helping people and whatnot, wouldn't they result in positive karma? And wouldn't that karma have to come to fruition? But the way that it's described is he ceased to create karma.
Yes.
Does that question make sense?
Yes.
Or is this something that's beyond discourse?
Yeah, maybe we can give a short answer. Bhante, do you? Yes. What happened in the achievement of enlightenment is actually, of course, destruction of craving. But in order to destroy the craving, we have to see the connection in this all to a link. So when this, to say that he overcame or destroyed craving means that he destroyed all other connecting links too.
Right.
Yeah. So your question was related to karma, right? I mean, yeah. And what really happens there was is not really burning out of the existing karma, but yeah, as you say, like potential of creating new karma. Yeah. So you have to understand karma here in the sense of habitual patterns. A karmic seed as habitual patterns. So when you when you disidentify yourself with whatever patterns that you have developed, and you stop creating new habits, and then that's what we call deconstruction. And then your question was that if Buddha did good deed, like go and taught, and many other enlightened ones did that, and isn't it a good karma, right? That's yeah.
I mean, all karma has to come to fruition, whether it's
Not
good or
necessarily, not necessarily.
bad. Really?
Yeah, I think that is the difference between Jain theory of karma and Buddhist theory of karma. In Jain theory of karma, you have to exhaust all the karma that you have done in order to become enlightened. In Buddhist theory, karma influences you as long as we have attachment, we have this self-attachment. Once you disconnect that, karma is nullified, whether good or bad.
Is the term nibbana, I mean, which is from the English speaker's point of view, that's very easy to misunderstand. But it means extinguishing or blowing out.
Of craving, yeah.
Of craving,
Yeah.
not of karma, of craving.
Craving, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, karma can exist as long as we somehow, grasp this and then create this, self-centeredness, and then karma can become meaningful. When you disintegrate, when you don't have any of the grasping.
And also,
Right,
Bhante,
yes.
for the karma, it has two terms, karma and
Karma.
consequences.
Consequences, yeah.
We mostly are clinging to the word consequences. Karma means action. Action means doing something. Doing what? Something doing right now. Where something happening right now. Doing something right now. In our mind. That is why Buddha simplified this knowledge into the thought. The karma germinates in the mind as an action. And it come out and overflow verbally, physically, after it originates from the mind. So this is, I think, if you go into the in-depth karmic analysis, and it's I think we have another class for that. But the simple thing is, once you attain Nibbana, you stop reacting for the karma, for any actions. You don't react for it. That means you don't respond. Especially don't respond mean usually we interact with the world in a aggressive manner. In that sense, we stop that part.
So
you don't respond to the thoughts anymore in your mind?
Pardon?
What do you stop responding? Do you stop responding to the thoughts in your mind, or?
Thoughts, verbs, words, and physical formations, everything.
So you're
Because
saying-
you don't stop. You have a capacity to stop your involvement for the consequences.
So in this
Because
way,
when you expose into the consequences, automatically you become the victims of that, and you continue your karmic course.
so what you're saying, their karma is not predetermined by some other forces, but you can control it in your head. You can you
Yeah.
can control it by not respond to the thoughts in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the Noble Eightfold Path is also called the path to destroy the karma. Yeah. So what's really happened in the enlightened mind, we can interact, but you interact in a way that doesn't strengthen any patterns or create any karmic seeds in your mind. It doesn't really, in normal way with our ignorance and cravings, when we react and we create a certain pattern and seed that tend to repeat again in another context. So the enlightened way of working, reacting and doing, you don't create that trace in your mind. That is done. And you don't have that elements of craving and ignorance for you to create a trace that will repeat again. Yes?
You said that the John theories, all karma has to be exhausted.
Yeah, that is why they engage in many activities to exhaust the negative karma. Yeah.
Rituals and so forth.
And like self-mortification.
And I didn't hear what you said about, you said in Buddhism the difference is that you can get enlightened and then exhaust your karma that way? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, actually, it's not really karma, let's say karma vipaka, like consequences of the karma. And that's why Bhante correctly made that distinction. In according to Jain theory, we have to exhaust all the consequences, potential consequences of karma to become enlightened or purified.
Yeah.
So in Buddhist theory, what we are really doing is to stop the potential doing the karma and then transcend the craving or the self-centeredness. So there's no being in first place to experience whatever collected.
Well, after Buddha was enlightened, though, he did wonderful things for the world.
Yeah.
I look at...
They are not karma.
Okay.
Any enlightened, because the enlightened mind is lacking many things that needed for karma to produce.
So karma just relates to oneself?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, he still had a human body, and that body had to die.
Yeah.
That, to me, that would be karmic, that he had a body and he suffered death.
Yeah,
Maybe
that
for
is
him
the
it wasn't-
karma that has did before. He became
That's
he
karma
became a
But-
being.
But I think even without the karma, yeah, you can say that, yeah. But actually, even before he physically died, he's already kind of dead, so to speak.
And also there is analysis for that.
Okay, he was already liberated, so the death didn't matter so much.
No,
to him.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
When somebody becomes enlightened, they're no longer connected with self because
That's right.
so they can have whatever thoughts they want, but they don't see it as a pattern, a repeated pattern of their self.
And they not only see it,
they're
yeah.
free from that,
They're free from
so
that.
they can act accordingly.
They just act spontaneously.
Right.
But of
And-
course, I think compassion, but I mean, the karma is produced when we have that sense of, I as the background, and then craving and other things, even the wholesome one, you still have the sense of I. And then once you've done that, and then you create a trace in that process. So,
For example, the web is not shaking if there is no the spider.
there's no spider. Yeah, web is not shaking.
Not shaking.
So spider is the I.
The self-notion.
Okay, now we can move to the few comments that you have made, and in between you can ask any questions if you have. There's one question about, please address the difference between causality as understood in the West and the dependent origination. That's not an easy question to answer within given time limit, but I think one way you can understand in any forms of causalities, the very use of the word causality has a mean that one thing causes something else, right? And A causes B, for example. That is why we are very careful not to use causality in this sense, because when you see the relationship between these two links, it's not really like feeling causes craving. or craving causes grasping, or grasping causes becoming, or becoming causes birth. It's not that deterministic, or it's not that I think Dan pointed out correctly, there's not that kind of agency in a strict sense. But it really says that feeling conditions craving to arise. When you say feeling conditions craving to arise,
As a tendency to produce.
yes, that's the kind of, if you want to say causality, that is presented in the dependent origination. Not a strict sense of causation, but it conditions. Yeah.
So what the distinction you're making is with the term causation, you're saying A must result in B. There's no other choice.
Yeah.
With conditioning, you're saying A tends to result in B,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily so.
Yeah. A tends to result in B, and A tends to result in C too in other
It
contexts.
looks like deterministic.
Yeah, when you say
But-
causation. Yeah.
After A, there might be the C.
Yeah.
B drop.
So I think difference between you say strict sense of causality and the dependent origination will be dependent origination can be rendered as conditionality, a theory of conditionality rather than a theory of causality.
So
Yes, you have.
Yeah, A and B, this and that, it kind of makes it, I'm picturing is this formula inside my head, like a mathematical problem.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could possibly, and it might help me a lot, if you could possibly use it as an example in life, like an actual example that it occurs in life.
Yeah, but can we take these 12 rings and
Not all of them, you don't have to do all of them, just put it together a little bit and I might understand it.
to understand
How it actually works in life. I mean, A, B, this, that. You know what I'm trying to say?
yeah, I think. That's why Bhante mentioned in the beginning, when we have abstract principle, we cannot really talk about abstract principle, we have to really apply it.
Well, there
And
was
this
one
is-
small example in the homework.
It's a major mistake, I think. All the philosophical and scholastic background, they use that, that term and apply and try to understand that fundamental structure. That's what I am telling, that it is not practical. If you start to solve a mathematical problem there instead of solving
that's
the
what's confusing.
very crucial problem here.
So if we can give a simple example, like when we have sensory experiences. For example, let's say we have working sensory organs, okay, and then let's say there are like visual forms, audible forms, or whatever, things, and then okay. So having working sensory organs can condition for experience can occur. But of course, we need many other conditions for this to happen. Having only working sensory organs is not enough. These sensory organs also should be supported with psychological preconcepts. So when you look at here, many things will come to your eye, retina, but your eye is cause, and whatever this light is another condition, whatever shapes and colors are another condition. But again, your psychological factors, you may not have a category of green, for example. In that case, you will not see that. Or if you
So it's sort of like saying that we all don't see things the same way. We all react to our experience
because there are a number of conditions and causes.
because we have causes and conditions.
Yeah, so
our past,
simply the eye doesn't cause us to see things, but I provide a condition for that experience to occur. But there are many other conditions supporting that too.
Thank you, I understand now. Thank
And
you.
also simply in this analysis, what Buddha did, that Buddha was not answering a question like what we see, but Buddha talking about how we see. This is the difference here.
Plus, we're all seeing the same thing right now. But I
or-
guarantee you, each one of us
As-
is
Seeing it differently.
seeing it differently.
Yeah, we see a common thing based on the structure of our eye because we all share the two eyes, I think. So, and the location of that eye is also quite similar. We also have quite similar culture, so we have similar categories, conceptual categories. So, because of those common factors, we may see some common things. At the same time, you may have your own individual experience too. If we invite
For
a person
example,
from
if
Amazon,
we talk in different languages, then what happens?
yeah.
Naming all gone and you cannot understand what I am telling you. That because all the structured names and the concepts gone because I am talking something else. But you can still hear the sound, no meaning there.
Your experience will be different. You will really see the rhythm. You will, yeah. So it is possible for us to see common thing. So, but at the same time, in every experience, there's a common part to it and there's an individual part to it. So because of the common part, we can interact and talk to each other and work. But there's also individual part to that too.
And the individual part goes back to other experiences.
Personal
and
experiences.
Other
yeah.
and other and other, and that's how you get to that no beginning thing that,
Yeah. And when for example, we all can see this piece of computer, right? But when I see it, because I have association with that, so we may all see the same shape and color, but we actually seeing different kinds of computers. Yeah. Okay, that brings to the other question actually asked in the comments. How does one make use of dependent origination in meditation? How does one make use of this explanation in meditation? That was the question, yeah?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking that in meditation it becomes a process where it enters the mind, you let go, it passes. That's a constant thing in meditation for me. It just depends on while I'm in meditation how much I can separate that from myself. And it just
You mean seeing the experience
the
in an
experience.
impersonal way,
Yeah.
not really identifying yourself with
That's
that
it.
experience.
Yeah.
Okay. I think at least when we conceptually discuss these processes, like not really looking at ourselves as individuals, as fixed, separate beings, but as a quite complicated, long process, and then that's the benefit that we get, right? So we can apply in that way, like try to
Actually, it
experience.
is a cluster,
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah.
This is not a kind of sequence.
Yeah.
This is how it is start and from at the end it end. No, it's a cluster. All together, they all work together.
In a very instant, even the moment I talk or even the moment I see anything, all these things work together and make that experience possible for me. And when you react, it repeats again and produce another.
And also it has a chance for us to starting from the ignorance because it's a psychological factor, not a physical factor. Ignorance is more, it's a factor that we can analyze. What is the ignorance? How does it exist? How does it appear? And so on. We can ask a lot of questions regarding that word. If you have some other terms, formation or other terms, then you're stuck there. But this word is more open, and we can ask questions about what is the ignorance.
One more question and
Yeah.
I'll shut up, I promise. Could this whole process be could the word mindfulness fit right into that?
We need mindfulness in order to see this.
Yeah.
Right now we are talking fortunately because they are enlightened people, they were able to point this out to us. But this is again only another piece of perception, that we are collecting. So in order to really see this, just knowing this list doesn't really remove our ignorance. So that's only another piece of knowledge. So the opposite to ignorance is not simply information or knowledge, but it's more different types of deeper realization and insight, what we call it. So mindfulness is the key for us to see these things within ourselves. And these are not really existing anywhere else. It's right here, right in our own experience.
And also, if you deeply analyze this, there is no mind to have mindfulness.
And it's just
Could I just say one thing about the question about meditation, which is I had the interesting experience of doing the exact same thing with my son today that I did on Sunday after spending Friday and Saturday meditating.
oh,
And it's a routine that he likes me to do, and taking care of him is a bit of a stressful thing to do. Last weekend, it was so easy and fun, and I thought, after meditating, it completely changed. It's like all of the things that typically annoy me or bring up various aspects of my anger and my cravings and my desires and all of this stuff, that was just gone. It just wasn't there after a weekend of meditation. And then today, I was really suffering.
the training is
And so I could see it's a link, but it's not even a like, you don't even have to like you don't have to pick it apart mindfully. You just have to do the meditation. You just have to spend the time in that state, and somehow it changes the response.
That's one. That's true. Brilliant, yeah. I think
So, what about Bhante, the question that about how to bring this into meditation?
yeah.
Do we
Yeah,
answer, you know?
no, that's what we are discussing now. Yeah.
And no, I mean, do we have anything to talk? Because
Yeah.
if you analyze this particular, if you understand this particular explanation, then there happen few things. Basically, you lose your self-centered attitude or self-notion. This is one of the best result that you gain through this analysis, understanding this. And also, that means actually you are meditating on there. Meditating means you are deeply analyzing. But in deep meditation, as we know, there we have a technique called tranquility meditation and the insight meditation. So this is mostly close to the insight meditation, not to the tranquility meditation. But even for tranquility meditation, I mean the samatha meditation, also you can use this understanding. If you don't know this deep analysis, actually you will do the meditation, but still you don't know what we are doing, what I am doing. Meditation is a fancy word in one hand. If you deeply know this, then you know what is the right point to click. If not, you are wandering around. I am meditating, still mind is wandering. Because there is a technique to dive into the object correctly without having wandering around. So it is a tranquility meditation. So in insight meditation, you lose that particular notion, I, myself. For that, you have to have this analysis. So, I mean, meditation always work with this, but very carefully you have to understand and distinguish the difference between this.
I think one benefit that I have got, understanding, at least knowing, at least in conceptual level, these two links, is that when you read the teachings of the Buddha, we always learn the non-self. There's no I, my, and myself. But in reality, that is how I feel. Right? That is how I really feel. Even at this moment, I have that feeling. I have that assumption. I works on based on that assumption. So you have that thing. So these 12 links help me to understand how such a thing can appear. It doesn't mean that there's no self, but there's a self constructed right here at every moment. And this is how it's constructed. Oh, this is why I'm feeling like this. This is why I have this, invisible ghost eye somehow, resting on me. So I understand how that feeling arises in me based on these links. So it appears all the time, but I'm not fooled by it. I know, at least conceptually, I know this is how it works. This is how it appears, but it really works inside. So
That's the trick, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's one thing to know something in your head, but
yeah.
it's another thing to feel something in your gut.
And actually, so even in teachings of the Buddha, we have different levels of knowing. The knowing by hearing, and that is what we are doing right now. Knowing by hearing, knowing by reading. It's still in the conceptual level, and then more deep analysis by reflecting. Knowing by reflecting, and the deep knowing comes knowing by experiencing. Yeah. So two different, actually, at least 3 levels of knowing.
I have this problem all the time where I guess it's like when you talk about different approaches to knowledge, okay, there's always going to be some discrepancy in how you approach something. On the one hand, if you approach an issue completely abstractly, completely through logic or reason, what I always like to say is 2 and 2 do not make 5. I mean, that's obvious. Nothing that you experience or feel is going to change that. But on the other hand, if you go through an experience personally, it's like a completely different kind of knowledge. And so I always find myself fighting about that because on the one hand, it's like, I mean, if you're looking at like real world issues, on the one hand, I remind myself I'm old enough and wise enough to know that you don't really understand it unless you go through it personally. But on the other hand, I know that 2 and 2 do not make 5. And so, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. It's the gut knowledge fighting with the head knowledge. You know what I mean? And so, when you try to pick out things in life that are important and you ask yourself, well, what stance should I take on this? What point of view should I have? I find myself fighting about what's appropriate, which side of the issue to
I think,
attack.
Maybe we should use our experience to inform our theoretical knowledge.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a really good example to point this out, and I guess it would be like an important court case. Suppose you're sitting on a jury, okay? If you react emotionally to what's going on, that's not what a jury member should do. They have to sit down, they have to take a look at the law, they have to ask themselves, was the law broken? Did this person do it? But on the other hand, when you're dealing with very heavy issues, you'd probably miss something if you didn't put the reason aside to a certain degree and look at it and say, what was it like to go through this for the victim? What was it like to go through this for the person who's being accused of the crime? And so, especially in a circumstance like that.
Yeah, definitely. So in those circumstances, what we are really doing is not necessarily whether that person is evil or not. We are making a decision whether that is according to the law or not.
Exactly.
That's a different.
That's abstract. That's completely out of your head. Okay.
The other thing really connected with that, I think, Sam, is that as we look at these links and apply them to our own behavior and thoughts, they're the same links for every human being.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that puts us in a category of just being one of millions and trillions. We aren't anything different or special. We're all functioning because of the same links. So
Yes, yeah.
we're responding, and you're responding, and everyone is responding, and we're not, that helps not eliminate, but at least decrease the I, me, myself, because I know that I'm nothing more than anybody else. I'm responding in the same way everybody else, not the same way,
Yeah.
but because of the same
Same mechanism.
mechanism or conditions.
So it helps you to develop empathy and
Yeah.
Yeah,
compassion.
yeah,
You're not
Yeah.
greater than, you're not the same.
Right.
It's like
and
they
you're
all
not less
they all
than.
apply to all of us individually, but depending on how we react to them, our life could be totally different from the
Right.
person sitting next to us. So that's where you could learn empathy.
but
Yeah,
even in
and-
that trial,
yeah,
the
and-
criminal is motivated, if you will, by those same conditions, or his behavior is determined by those same conditions as the victim,
Mm.
or the other people in that environment.
But again, the way we react can be different based
Yeah.
on our decision at that moment,
Yeah.
which is informed by our previous actions. So again, if we have individual, way of
Yeah.
responding,
Yeah, this is the, we can say that this is the basic structure of the life. But we all have different habits, habitual patterns. Actually, from there we identify ourselves from others and separate, and we work differently. But the basic structure is still the same. That is why this structure is more than enough to understand deeply ourselves. If you can apply this and understand yourself, and then you can develop sympathy and empathy and all other qualities.
Just responding to what you said, Sam, I think that isn't there a distinction drawn between conventional knowledge and ultimate knowledge?
yes,
So that 2 and 2 plus 4 may be part of conventional knowledge, and the actions you take as a juror may be in the conventional sphere. That's distinct from ultimate knowledge. I know that the issue gets kind of thorny, and we're not going to go there, but I respect what you're
Yes.
saying about the distinct types of knowledge.
like provisional truths and ultimate truths. Like, so we can treat like things that we have the conventions. For example, today is a Monday. Today is Saturday, right? So today is Saturday. So we all agree that. But is there any particular thing on Saturday? No, it's kind of true, right? Because it's common convention.
Well, it's a convention.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we have that
convention, we all agree.
two levels of truth, in so to speak, like conventional, let's say provisional truths, and then ultimate truths. I think that's what you're. So you're helping him to understand what the mind does and what the experience does.
I'm just thinking about the distinction that you drew between logical knowledge or juridical knowledge and this knowledge.
Are we talking about something that we know in our head and something we know in our heart? Like I've learned, for an example, if I eat chocolate, that's not a good thing. I know that in my head and in my heart.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm not going to eat chocolate.
Yeah.
So the next time I eat chocolate, I suffer the consequences, and I learn, oh boy, that really hurts. You know what I mean? I better not do that next time.
I mean,
Is that more like experience rather than thinking? Is that what we're talking
yeah, I
about?
think it is the realization that we gain through experience that really changes us. Yeah, simply reading and knowing will somehow help us to lead us to have the experiential knowledge. But until we have experiential realization, there will be less change in ourselves.
So, Bhante, what are the ultimate knowledge? What is the ultimate knowledge?
Ultimate wisdom, we can say these two links in simple, like selfless phenomena, right? Yeah.
All right, we're talking about the two truths,
Yes.
conventional and absolute.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the word links.
Okay.
Is it correct to think that the term links refer to the linking of each of these 12 concepts, but it's also links us to the 6 realms of samsara? Samsaric existence?
I think
No.
I think the link to samsara is like grasping and becoming, and that is how it explains, like attachment, grasping makes existence possible. Yeah, I think links here means let's say like how to say items. Yeah.
Well, there's 6 realms of samsaric existence, right?
Yeah. I mean, as long as ignorance, like as long as that lid is on the top of the bottle, this the whatever happening in the bottle can exist in the same way, as long as we have this ignorance, so to speak, and 6 realms is existing.
Okay, so this pertains to the hell realms, the
Yeah.
God realms,
Yeah.
the animal realms.
Yeah, I mean, here we don't have consciousness here, but it's like, so based on this whole functioning, we fashion our consciousness in different way. It's the same mechanism, but we fashion our consciousness in different ways. Like in this particular life, they're based on what we do, what we say, and how we, learn and meditate or not. So we fashion our consciousness in a particular way. We try to, maybe we are following the Dhamma, we try to deconstruct, but otherwise we fashion in a different way. And so and this whole lifetime we have fashioned that consciousness, and then it has certain nature of it. So it will express in different realms based on the based on how we fashion the consciousness. But again, it's like it is a complex process that is going on here.
And also, finally, I think now we are time's up, and I would like to emphasize again that we are jumping out from this particular structure still. Nibbana, karma, and realm, and all that. It's okay for discussion, but still, again, I invite you to please come and stuck in between this area and try to understand these few factors, links. Those are the very, very important area in this application. If you think that, contact, ignorance, and so on, and if you know just by meaning, you think that, I know that, it is a big hallucination in our life.
Yeah, the same thing happened actually when Anand, the person attended the Buddha, one day he was thinking, meditating, reflecting on different origination, and he was so happy that he realized it, and he went to the Buddha and told, Bhante, Venerable Sir, today I understood the dependent origination, I'm so happy. He said, don't say so. And simply thinking about it doesn't. And then actual Buddha gave a specific discourse to Venerable Anand about explaining, if you really realize it, you will not suffer anymore. So with that note, we will conclude that. We want to thank Bhante for taking on the trouble.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really enjoying this. Thank you.
And thank you.